Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live from Monday, April 14th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Studio 7, the birthday boy dog in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
From deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by you watching right now. Thanks to all of you, including Ken Hayes, Philip Shane, Paul Boyer, and everyone. Welcome our brand new patron, Nar.
Always good to have a new patron on a Monday.
Patron.
Yeah, welcome to DTNS Live, everybody. Whether you're with us live or watching or listening after the fact, this is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better as we go through it together. Justin Robert Young, how are you and the fam doing?
Well, you know, we're doing fantastic. We are now hopefully on the other end, although you can never really be sure, on our first bout of daycare crud. It's kind of like con crud if you've ever been to a convention, but it never ends. Both the illnesses, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because it was given to me by my daughter's tiny lungs, coughed right into my mouth. But the illness is mild yet persistent in a way that I have never truly been annoyed by illness before. But we soldier on and we play hurt for the DTNS program.
It's weird. They never tell you this, but kids are little germ carriers.
They are.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Little petri dishes.
Everything.
No, everyone tells you this, but you still don't realize it until.
Oh no, you realize it when you're a parent, when your eyes are glued shut because you got pink eye for the first time in your life because it was carried in by your daughter. You realize.
Well, that's fun. So on that note, Roger, how are you doing?
I don't have pink eye anymore. That was 5 years ago. I think I am semi-relieved because my taxes are done. However, I'm helping my family with their taxes, so there's some anxiety over that.
It's a taxing time.
Yes, very taxing.
Taxing time for taxes. And Tom, Seven the dog, celebrated a milestone over the weekend.
Yeah, first birthday ever in his life today. He's 1 year old today. Yeah.
He's in his second year of life.
He is beginning his second year of life.
So, you know, kind of a grown-up thing.
He is a grown-up dog, although he doesn't always act like it. He just has the body of one now.
Oh, I hear that. I think we can all relate.
No, but he's a good kid. We took him to the dog bakery. We got him some toys. He had a good weekend. And he's out playing with some friends right now on his birthday proper. Good time to be a dog.
Well, that's fun to hear. A happy birthday, Seven. And we are here to talk tech news, so let's get into it with the quick hits.
Nvidia announced Monday that it is changing its official colors to red, white, and blue. That's not true, but it did commission manufacturing space in Texas and packaging and testing facilities in Arizona and announced the production of Blackwell chips has begun at the TSMC fab in Phoenix, Arizona. Nvidia says that within 4 years, it'll produce $500 billion of infrastructure in the United States of America, where it was born. The announcements come after Nvidia received an exemption last week to continue to export its H20 chips to China.
The FTC's antitrust trial against Meta kicked off Monday, examining whether the company's takeovers of Instagram and WhatsApp were part of an unlawful effort to eliminate competition. Regulators are looking to dismantle Meta's $1.4 trillion business. The company maintains it has been playing fair all along and still faces strong competition.
Sony has raised the price of the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. In Europe, it's going up 50 euros from £449.99 to £499.99. And in the UK, it's going up £40 from £389.99 to £429.99. Similar price increases also happening in Australia and New Zealand. Price of the PS5 with a Blu-ray drive and the PS5 Pro remains unchanged in Europe and the UK, though it's going up in Australia. And Sony lowered the price of the Blu-ray add-on. So one much smaller price going down. Sony attributed the rises to inflation and exchange rates.
Samsung has paused the worldwide rollout of One UI 7 after some reports in South Korea that the update caused some Galaxy S24 users to be unable to unlock their phones. you would want to unlock your phone. So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. The
the way
company
I
has
use it.
not yet officially confirmed the pause or provided a fix for affected users.
OpenAI unveiled GPT 4.1. That includes GPT 4.1 Mini and 4.1 Nano, all accessible through the API, not in ChatGPT yet. These models support up to 1 million tokens of context to process extensive data inputs. 4.1 is priced at $2 per million input tokens, $8 per million output tokens. If you use the API, those are meaningful for you, with the Mini and the Nano versions available at lower rates.
Intel announced a 51% stake of its Field Programmable Gate Arrays, or FPGA, subsidiary Altera is going to investment firm Silver Lake for $4.46 billion, valuing Altera at this point at $8.75 billion. Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan says that the broader strategy is to cut expenses, sharpen focus, the standards. The deal is expected to close in the second half of this year, 2025. Canada's CBC published an account Monday of a woman from Toronto who received a transcript of a private conversation that she had after she took an 8-minute Lyft ride. So she's sitting in the back seat having a conversation, and the message came from an unknown number shortly after the ride. And it was her conversation. Lyft initially told her, because she was pretty freaked out, wondering what had happened, it may be part of a pilot program, later said no, it's not, and blamed the driver for recording without consent, which violates Lyft's policies. It violates Uber's policies as well, but we're talking about Lyft at this point. The company confirmed the message was sent from a masked number, so she didn't know who it was from, but denied any connection to some official audio recording tests that it has been conducting in the U.S.
This
All
is a
right.
confusing story because
It is.
Lyft is saying this came from our number, but when they say masked number, it means their number that's used to mask the actual number of the driver. So that happens with you too. When you communicate over Uber or Lyft, they don't let you see the actual number of the person you're talking to. They mask it with a fake number. So Lyft's like, yes, came through that number, but that just means the driver sent it through the Lyft system, and that's how she got it. Then Lyft says, oh yeah, we're doing something like that, but not in Canada, which one makes you wonder, like, okay, was this guy on a VPN somehow and able to do it because of that? Also, why would he send that text message to her knowing that that would freak her out? So maybe this is a mistake. And if it's not the U.S. situation happening accidentally in Canada, what were they doing? Why were they creating a transcript of that conversation? It's all a little bit off.
Yeah, I can think of a specific scenario. I was in the back of a Lyft. It might have been an Uber, but I'm pretty sure it was a Lyft. I was with a friend, and she was on the phone, like doing some work before we were going to our destination. Sort of like, sorry, I'm like, it's fine. But she was on speakerphone. And, so I'm kind of just sitting there quietly. The driver's just, driving quietly. And we're listening to my friend's conversation. And eventually, whoever was on the other line was like, can I ask you a delicate question? At which point she was like, yes, give me a sec. Takes it off speaker. And then has, sort of a one-sided conversation where I was just sort of like, yeah, I don't know. This felt like we shouldn't have been in this conference room at this time. And nothing ever bad happened with that. But I always felt like, yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful because some of the stuff, 90% of the time, the driver doesn't care what you're doing. They don't care who you're talking to. But you should care about who hears your private conversations.
I barely talk to other people when I'm in a Uber or Lyft. That's just a thing. I'm like, oh, I know that person is listening, so I don't know. I know not everyone's like that.
Beyond whether or not the person is listening, of course, the person is listening, right? There's an element of discretion that you expect from somebody in exchange for the money to do so, but the idea that there are cameras and microphones that are recording passengers is not new. There's a lot. I think it's a pretty common occurrence in ride shares, especially in kind of areas that can get a little rowdy, like they can on 6th Street here in Austin, Texas, where they make sure that you can see the screen that is recording you.
I've been in those kinds of rides. Sometimes they were taxis, not ride shares, where they're like, yeah, I'm recording you right now, just so you know.
Just so you
and the
know,
whole
so
idea
you are
is
on your
that
best behavior.
it's for rider safety also. It's like, sure, be on your best behavior, but also if something were to happen to you, we want to make sure that, we knew what happened.
Here's
And,
what I don't
we'll,
know.
We'll keep you safe.
What on earth could this product be that would experience you as a customer getting a transcript of a conversation that you had in the back of a car? I can see it as a product for the driver to say, all right, if something goes crazy and you need to have some sort of version of a he said, she said, now you can have this transcript and like we will do a better job at adjudicating who was right and who was wrong. But if you don't request it, if you're not in an active fight with a rideshare driver, I can't imagine why you would ever want that. Why would you ever want to see that as a rider?
Well, by the time you get into the active fight with the driver, one might have needed the transcript so that you could plead your case. I wonder if also, and this was not my Lyft ride, but in this case of this sort of erroneous weird text where she's like, why did you send this to me, Lyft? Like, sure, that was me talking in the back of the car, but why did you send this to me? Was it maybe the driver being like, I just want you to know what we hear.
I could hear everything.
Yeah.
That's a weird way of doing it, but yeah.
It would be a weird way of doing it, but
Yeah.
that's not impossible either.
I can't imagine that the driver sent it. I could imagine
Apparently
that this
the
is some
driver
kind
sent
of-
it,
Drivers
though.
did send it.
Lyft says it came from the driver's phone number through the mask number.
Okay, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I guess what I am maybe the driver did send it. I have a hard time believing that it is something that he copied out of somewhere, pasted into the text field and
Right?
hit send on, right?
It seems unlikely.
That
Yeah.
there's some kind of, maybe it's a fat
Automated
finger
system.
thing that he hits another button and all of a sudden in the process of clearing out a ride, something gets sent, or he's trying to hit thank you.
Or there's a
on
there's a
tip,
bug in the
and
Lyft
it-
app
yeah.
that has that US because they're like, oh yeah, we have a US test pilot program that can do this. Maybe there was a bug in the Lyft app that caused it to happen, and he had no awareness.
Tom,
what's
the product though? What is the product here?
The product? I absolutely see the product. The product is, and if it's done right, it's you will agree or you will request that your conversation be monitored so that if anything should go wrong, you've got a record of everything that was said and a recording. That is a thing that a small percentage, but a percentage of riders are going to want because they've had an incident before. And so they're going to be like, you know what? I want everything recorded while I'm in this ride. That way, if that driver starts to say this or say that or do this or do that, it'll be on record and somebody will be able to refer to it later. I think that would be the product, but it would have to be a thing that you as the rider say, I would like this turned on during this ride.
Well, and for something like Waymo, which I take more often than I take Ubers or Lyfts these days, it is very clear. You get in the car and, there's this whole thing about like, oh, people think that because Waymos don't have drivers, you could just do whatever you want in the backseat. It's like, no, you're being surveilled much more than ever.
Much more, yeah.
I don't know why you would do that unless you
interesting.
just want to get booted out of the system immediately. But sure, there's this element of like, if I'm alone, then it doesn't matter. It's like, no. Well, please don't think that because that's not true. And Waymo again does this whole thing like it's for your safety. Everything is for your safety, but also because we don't want you to do drugs in our back seat.
It's a liability. I see it mostly as a liability insurance. If something were to happen to a rider in one of these, they can say. Now, I don't understand why they would have a system that would send it to the rider, but to have a system that says like, "Hey, we were not at fault."
If the rider requested it,
Yeah.
it would get
Yeah.
sent to the rider.
Yeah, but who's we? The company or the driver?
the company, and it would be a service offered to the driver that
That's
signs
why
on.
I go back to Justin's theory that he's clearing out the ride and it got automatically sent because that's what it would do when properly working, and maybe this was a glitch.
Yeah.
But even then, that seems like a terrible, like, who's adjudicating this between the writer and the and the driver? It's like, oh, I told you to turn left and instead you turned right. It's like, no, you didn't. Well, really? Here's the transcript. Like, that's not a good
this isn't
customer
about
experience.
you took the wrong route. This is about abuse. This is about being yelled at.
But
This
sure,
is about
even
being
then,
taken the wrong
but
place.
you're gonna go writer to driver on like, well, check the transcript, Missy. Like, that's not gonna solve anything.
People are going to want to have that, though. They're
It's-
going to want
I
to be
mean,
able
if
to prove, like, I'm
You
not
could
just making it up.
demand it, but at that point, why not just have a button for the a button for the writer?
That's what I believe the product would be. Is the writer would say,
Yeah,
when I
the
get
writer
into
would
a
hit a
ride,
button.
I would
Yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
or I always have this, and the driver will be alerted, like, hey, your rider's going to be recording everything.
I actually, the one thing I disagree with, Tom, is I think that this is not going to be an opt-in thing. This will just be everywhere, and it's just going to be another thing in the EULA. And then when you need it, you'll be happy that it happened. But by and large,
they'll be like, it's always on, and then we clear it out and delete it after every
Exactly.
ride. If you don't request it, they might go that way.
Delete.
Well,
Yes.
a neuroscience professor recently wrote about a very familiar topic to us at this point of chatbots sounding human, maybe a little too human, and making us as actual humans more likely to believe them, even if they're wrong. But he's proposing a solution, right, Tom?
Yeah, we've talked about this a number of times. Dr. Marion Gary has come on a couple of times talking about aspects of this, of why, the way these chatbots phrase things really leans into us wanting to believe that there's an intelligence behind them and that they're human and all of that. Guillaume Thierry is a professor of cognitive neuroscience at Bangor University in the United Kingdom. And writes all the things you would expect in that conversation about why it is that we tend to anthropomorphize these chatbots and want to believe and be persuaded by them. And then says, we need to de-anthropomorphize AI. Now, strip it of its human mask. This should be easy. Companies could remove all reference to emotion, judgment, or cognitive processing on the part of the AI. In particular, it should respond factually without ever saying I, or I feel that, or I am curious. Basically, he's saying all the things that make it sound natural and human, get rid of those. You can filter out for all kinds of things in these chatbots. You do it all the time. Filter out for this. Make it emotionless. Make it sound like a robot. It is in our best interest to not be swayed by it. That also makes it less warm and less acceptable to people. Justin, where do you fall on this? Should AI be dehumanized?
No. I think it should be more humanized. I think that we should be interacting with it in the most natural way that we possibly can, because that's the way that we're going to have a better relationship with this technology. Well, let me parcel this out. Number one, I think that we talk about AI or chatbots in a very, very broad way, in a very elementary way now, in the way that we would talk about like the internet back in the early 90s. It's going to be a multifaceted version. So not every version of AI is, or even chatbots need to have a human touch to them. But the problem that this stuff is looking to solve is not one that I think is going to be the same problem for as long as some people assume it will. And that is the concept that it is going to be wrong. I think that we're really at the cusp of artificially generated text being about as accurate as a random internet search is, which is just a collection of human intelligence in general. And I think that we're pretty much at that level technologically right now. It's just a matter of it being spread out and our own learning curve of how to use these technologies to meet up to it. But I don't think any kind of system level tweaking is going to really be anything that we need to do. No.
What about not wrong but persuasive, right? It's not wrong, but it's taking a position and persuading people. I could see people saying like, yeah, even if it's factually accurate all the time, we should understand that there's not a person at the other end of this.
I mean, this feels
That's
a lot
the whole
to
bias problem.
But it feels a lot to me like the conversations we had about Wikipedia. oh, anybody can change Wikipedia, that this is like not a reliable thing. And it's like, well, so would the answer to Wikipedia back in the aughts have been like, you have to, at the end of every sentence, say, haha, anybody can change this? Like, no, it's going to read like an encyclopedia because that's the most efficient way to get the information out.
But at the same time, with something like Wikipedia, it's like you have so many mods that, sure, something weird is going to show up there pretty briefly, but the moderation army of Wikipedia and other stuff like it is pretty good.
I agree with you, and that is the smart argument that we made when other people were making that argument that I just made before. There are technological ways that this is not the problem that we assume it is. And I am telling you right now that when it comes to chatbots, in terms of hallucinations and the ability to search the internet and double check its work, especially in reasoning models, we're at a point now technologically that the information gap or the hallucination fear is, to me, not at the level that we need to change the way that it interacts with us.
I don't know.
After last week, go ahead, Roger.
Oh, no, go ahead.
After last week, when we talked about the idea that ChatGPT could remember everything from all of your past interactions, and some people were like, I don't know if I want that, and you have options when you ask a query. You can say like, this is just for this one thing, or remember me forever, but. A bunch of my friends over the weekend, because this is the kind of fun we have over the weekend, guys, hold your butts, is asking ChatGPT, what are my 5 blind spots?
Oh,
Knowing
yeah.
what you know out of
that went viral
at this point. Yeah. What are my 5 blind spots? And I was like, and people were, pasting all sorts of stuff. And I was like, I don't even use it like that. I mean, I don't think it would know anything about me besides the fact that sometimes I'm like, summarize this text story in 2 to 3 sentences.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's all I do, really. I don't use it the way other people use it. But I was like, let's try. And sure enough, it was like, here's what I think about you, Sarah. And it was kind of like, number 1, you seem to, really be into tech news. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th one was like, And just so you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but, it seems like you've gone through a lot of, like, really hard things in the last few years. Here are some examples of things I know about you. And I wonder if you might just want to slow down a little bit. And I was like, okay, that's not incorrect, but like, who are you? Are you outside my house?
I love that it's like 5 things I know about Sarah. You are a California girl. You're a blonde. You like tech news, and you're covering for your trauma by burying yourself in work. You really should re-examine your work-life balance.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is an exercise. I get it. Like, there's some ha-ha elements to this, but I was like, it feels very personal. It is. Well, and I don't remember ever telling it some personal things, but I clearly did a search here and there where it was like, I think you're asking about yourself.
And you mostly use it for work, so it's going to think all you do is work.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird. I don't disagree with you, Justin, but I do think, at least personally for me, stripping away some of what's considered to be the human element around it, I think, at least for me, would be beneficial, because there's a lot of not vagaries, but sort of ambivalence to human cultural language that I don't really need. Like, it seems like, just say, based on your search, you have a 20% chance of whatever getting these tickets if you do this, rather than, hey, you would have more luck if you tried this. I don't know if I would prefer that, or just sort of a computerized version. And not to say that I have some issue with it, but for me, it would just be a little more, not fluid, but a little more just blunt. By
the way, the ability to shape that tone is something that is constantly worked on and valued in LLMs. The last Llama model that came out was criticized for being way too chatty.
you can shape it yourself. You can tell it what tone to talk to you. And in fact, Thierry, who says, I use these all the time, I'm going to continue to use them, says, I instruct my models not to address me by name. I ask it to call itself AI, to speak in the third person, and to avoid emotional or cognitive terms. So if you are like Professor Terry and you're like, yeah, I think these things should be less human, you could do that. You can tell it to act that way.
And by the way, its ability to do it, very human.
Well, and on the flip side, you can say, here is everything that you need to know about me, and pretend that you're me. Because there are people who use, I'm not just talking about ChatGPT, but for the purposes of this conversation, we will. There are a lot of people who, they're like, no, I want you to basically be like, I am you. Here's your advice.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're going for. Other people feel very unnerved by that approach. And I don't think either one is right or wrong.
Because everybody has their own way that they want to interact with this.
Exactly.
And this is the thing that I do believe OpenAI has a bit of a moat on right now in terms of the tech. Number one, their app is far more downloaded. And when it comes to that memory stuff, what they want is her. They are building her, from the movie Her, right? They're building that level of, hopefully it doesn't just start connecting with each other and then going off to space. Spoiler for Her. But
Great.
Thanks a lot, Justin.
They want that product. That's what they are trying to build, and they're not that far away from it. And the thing that is, I don't know if societally we're really ready for, because I don't know what the ramifications are going to be. But the number one thing that people say that they get the most use out of these chatbots, therapy. They want to confide in these things. They want to better themselves, theoretically, by unburdening themselves of their issues to it. I don't know if I would ever be comfortable doing that, but that is something that there is obviously a huge market demand for.
Well, you know where you can unburden yourself, Justin, without judgment from
Tom?
me? Our subreddit. Just go post a story and I will tell you exactly what I think about it. And so will everyone else on the subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them, folks. Reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
All right, Justin, let's talk tariffs. You could be excused. I know you're not unclear about what tech is under tariffs because you do this all day, every day. But many other people might be scratching their heads a little bit. What is a tariff? What isn't a tariff? So where are we today?
So the short version is that at the beginning of this month in April, there were a lot of tariffs that were announced by the White House to be put into place at some point later in this month. Obviously, many of them were very, very large. There was a lot of global reaction to it. The markets had a very negative reaction to it. Donald Trump paused them for many countries except for China. So China currently has an additional 145% tariff on exports into the United States. However, on Friday, a big news story broke saying that exempt from those tariffs would be smartphones, semiconductors, and many other things. Here we go. Solar panels, flat panel television displays, flash drives, and memory cards, along with smartphones and computers. That is something that is a big deal. That's about 60% of Chinese exports into the United States. So it was looked at as a bit of a capitulation, or some would say a realistic understanding of the global trade market for the Trump administration to do it. However, on Sunday, the Trump administration came out on a lot of the Sunday shows and said that is not the case. There is no permanent exemption to all of these products. China does not get any kind of special privileges. This is not something that is a gift to Apple and Nvidia and all the other companies that manufacture stuff in China. That there will be forthcoming a new tariff rate for those products. So I want to clear things up for people and just let you know, just level set a little bit on where things are right now. The news story that broke was because Customs and Border Patrol released a list of codes that were going to be exempt from these new tariffs. And there's discussion and questions over PR spin of exactly how this is going on. But right now, if you are shipping things into the United States, those codes will not be charged the 145% tariffs. There is still a 20% tariff that went in before the Liberation Day stuff. That is the fentanyl tariff. You are still subject to that. But as it stands right now, you can import these things and not pay that tariff rate. Will that change? According to the Trump administration, yes. Do we know when? No, we don't. But the one thing that I do want to clear up for people, and I was speaking to somebody that has a bunch of stuff overseas that is now looking to try to bring in as much stuff as possible to see whether or not they can get it in before there is any kind of change. Tweets or truths on the president's social message board of choice are not policy. There is a very complicated process to get things into the country. And every single product is slotted into a code that needs to be updated in the register. So when it comes into customs, customs can go through everything and assess what the tariff is going to be. I don't think that the change in this is going to happen fast, but still it is something to keep an eye on.
And I found out today that pharmaceuticals and lumber are also in similar situations to semiconductors when you're looking at those codes. So this is why I tend to want to only talk about these topics when we have lists like this, where we can go, okay, forget what people said was going to happen, what might happen, could happen, what won't happen. This is what the reality is right now. And the reality is right now that semiconductor-based products are receiving a 20% tariff that was put in place earlier this year, but not the new 10%, and from China, not the new 145%. That's the upshot, right?
Yeah. So the argument from the Trump administration is, no, these are not products that will be in that reciprocal tariff bucket, as they're referring to it. There are separate buckets that lumber, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductor products are going to go into, and those will be announced. But they are looking at those products as similar products to automotive parts and cars in general, that those are so important that we need to onshore them. They are not up for negotiation. You can negotiate for the 10%. You can negotiate for the other reciprocal rate that came out earlier this year or earlier this month. And China sure as heck can negotiate for, to get under the 145%, which does seem to be an unsustainable number. But these industries, they want to onshore these products. They want to create a domestic industry for them. And so that they might be lower, that they might be more reasonable than obviously the 145% or the 30% or whatever that we saw before. So maybe they come in at a 15%. And so it's enough that businesses can understand, it makes more sense to do it here. But those, according to the Trump administration, are going to be non-negotiable, unlike the other tariffs.
At least, but again, now we're in the realm of like, this is what they say. Commerce Secretary
no, but that's
Lutnick said,
to explain why they are off that sheet. That's all I'm saying.
We're in an investigative mode for the next 2 months, and then 2 months from now we'll have the new tariffs, unless they come to some big beautiful deal with some country, and then that all changes. That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I don't know. We don't know.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah. That's the only the only thing that we want to get out there is just that right now these are the things that do not have the big number on them.
But they still have tariffs on them. Yeah.
They still have tariffs.
And again, as I have to constantly remind myself and therefore remind others, the price of a good isn't based on the cost alone. The price of a good is based on what people will pay for it. And if the price people will pay goes below the cost, then you do other things like loss leaders, or you just don't make it. But when we're talking about like, oh, so if there's a 20% tariff, the price goes up 20%. No, it doesn't. There's all kinds of other factors that go into deciding if they're going to eat that loss or how they're going to pass it along, et cetera.
Yeah, I will say anybody who is confidently talking about macroeconomic trends and how it is going to eventually affect your pocketbook is probably projecting a little bit. This is very, very, very complicated stuff that is affected by a lot of different factors.
S. Kramer 00 wants to know if there was a tariff when they exported the list out of Excel at Customs and Border Patrol.
Yes, they had any kind of compounding math spreadsheets were hit with an immediate 10% tariff.
Well, it is sometimes seen as a bit of a status symbol to not have a case on your smartphone. You just don't care if it breaks, right? Because the indication is that you could afford to replace a really expensive phone if you had to. I didn't realize people felt this way about me, being a non-case user, but here we are. That might no longer be the case, as it were, right, Roger?
Yes. So Thomas Germain, the senior technology journalist for the BBC, wrote up a very interesting piece about the necessity of actually having a phone case in the first place. He interviewed a colleague at his old job over at Consumer Reports who does the phone testing. They do a drop test, and that individual said effectively that the fail rate for phones that go through that process of being artificially dropped and basically a long tumbler that keeps spinning and drops the phone on concrete ends, has dropped from about one third of phones failing to few, if any.
Because the phones are stronger now.
The phones are stronger. They're designed with much better screen protection. They moved up from Gorilla Glass to ceramic shield, which impregnates the glass with a silicate substrate to keep it from shattering in the way it used to, as well as building stronger bezels around the edge to take the impact, to the point that cases aren't the necessity that they were maybe even 5 years ago when you bought a new phone. In other words, if you drop the phone out of your pocket, it would not necessarily break and stop functioning. It might have a dent, might have a crack, but it would not be damaged where it would not work. And so the question he was positing is like, do we keep it around just because it's an insurance policy to keep it from being blemished? Or are there other reasons? Is it stylistic? Like we have color choices, we have, feel, like we have ones that feel grippy or have like a very a smooth feel or something else. And I was just wondering, just putting the question to the rest of you, like, do you keep a case on for other reasons more than just protection?
I've never used a case. It's not because I don't think they're a good idea. I have shattered, I was about to say many a phone. I've had some mishaps. There was a phone that tragically went into a toilet, and it never came back to life. There have been some, falling out of a pocket that I thought it was secure in, and it, front has shattered. I'm not new to this. At the same time, I just like the phone being the phone that I bought. This is very much not some sort of flex like, I'm so rich, I'll just buy another one. Certainly not. No. What I'll do is I'll rock that weird phone with the glass like falling into my lap at dinner for the next 3 years.
I can vouch for that. I have seen Sarah with a cracked phone screen for months on end because it still worked.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. It still works. But people, like Eileen Rivera, co-host on Apple Vision Show, she loves cases because she's like, I can change the color of my phone.
Yes.
It doesn't have to just be about safety. It's like, it's being, you're expressing yourself.
When I got my Pixel 6a, they didn't have a light green color that I wanted, and they just happened to sell one on Amazon. So I picked it up because I like the color, because it stands out. Like if I leave it on the counter, I know, my phone's over there. I can go grab it. I also like the fact that it's tactile. Like a lot of the phones I used to have were very smooth and nice and sexy looking, but I didn't like the fact that I couldn't grip it. Like with sweaty palms, it would always just start sliding out, and I just like having something to hold on to.
Yeah. I have gone the other way. I used to never have a case, and then it was the iPhone 7 that I dropped on the floor a week before it was about to be replaced. And after that, I got mill standard cases that were bulletproof to keep that from ever happening again. And then to be the exception that proves the rule in this new land where I don't doubt the stats that you were talking about, Roger, that most of these phones don't break when they drop them. I had tempered glass over the screen and a like really heavy case, dropped my phone. It broke through the tempered glass and broke the glass on the phone, and I had to have it replaced. Now, I was covered by Apple Care, so I was lucky enough that I was able to do the express replacement and just get a new phone sent to me, so I didn't have to spend $1,000 plus more. But I'm sitting here looking at this story of like, nope. I need that case because like the case didn't even protect me. Or maybe I should take the lesson of like, why bother with the case? It didn't even protect me. I mean,
I had a case.
It would protect you in a lot of other falls.
This phone replaced had a case on it, and because I like to do it occasionally, I just throw my phone on the bed as I walk in because it's a weird thing. But I missed the one time, and it landed right on the corner of the phone, and it totally just like my phone doesn't work anymore.
I'm imagining Roger walking in and just like hurling his phone as hard as he can.
I literally just throw this
just like
because
MLB pitcher style. Oh,
Yeah.
crap,
No.
I overdid it.
I do
then
a
it
soft
bounces off.
I do a softball pitch, and I need to put a twist in it so it rotates at least 5 times before landing. I don't know why, but it's a thing.
I think
He likes to skip it off his bed like a stone on a placid lake. So I was a big case guy from the very, very beginning. I even was such a case guy that I was a case wallet guy. I would carry my ID and
the whole ball of wax.
My whatever credit card or ATM card that I use the most. Then I got robbed. That was a bit of a wake up call to maybe go away from the wallet cases. So I didn't have to deal with that. But I still was a case guy until these dang iPhones just started getting too big. So to put a good case on a phone that's already kind of big for the pocket was just a bridge too far. So I've been going au naturel over the last 2 phones. And even though I've dropped it a few times, it really has been okay. I also don't leave my house all that much, so I don't really feel like there's a ton of opportunities for me to totally screw it.
That's kind of like the subtext of all this is like, if you just don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Where are you going to drop the phone?
Really, it's because I'm putting the phone on the side of the sink while I use the bathroom. That's pretty much it. That's like the
I just
most
opted for
dangerous
hand
place I put
surgery
my
to
phone.
make my hands bigger so that they'll wrap around the phone with the case.
Yeah. I just wear webbed gloves.
I definitely don't want my screen to shatter. I've got the 15 Pro Max here, which has been. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of any like crazy dramatic fall that it's had, but it's definitely tumbled out of a purse here and there. No issues, and it does depend on the angle. You know, you get that drop where you're like, oh, and then you look at it, you're like, yeah. We got it just at that corner, and now we've got, some cracks. But I feel like this is happening less and less. To your original point, Roger, these phones they're not meant to be. You're not supposed to, throw them off a tall building and hope that they survive. But when accidents happen, and they will, of course, they are more resilient than ever.
And I would add one final thing. I remember I had a friend who had their phone on their dash. And they lived in a hot country, and they had the windows rolled down. They took a curve, and she watched that phone slide right out the window. And so now she keeps a case just to keep it a little grippy.
Wait, she keeps saying that's the change of behavior? She just said, "Oh no, I need a case." I shouldn't put my phone on the dash.
I mean, you just when you watch your phone, just
cases
literally
are not
go from
that
one
grippy.
when you see when
they're grippier than not having one, though.
Sure, but if you turn hard enough, it's gonna fly out the window. Like
the drink thing is perfect. Or get a mount.
Fix the AC in the car and keep the windows rolling.
Oh my lord!
Get a mount
Safety
to
first.
hold it in one place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You
I
stay
do
inside.
feel like
That's what you
feel
do.
like
Talk
in
to your
general,
priest or chatbot because you've got some problems if that's the decision you're making on that
I feel like in
problem.
general, people have a case because they don't like scratches, which is hilarious because the case gets scratched, but we don't like the idea of the phone itself being scratched
Yes.
for when we're going to trade it in later, or fashion. Like you said, Sarah, like my wife, Eileen does. She's like, oh, I like switching out cases, having fun cases.
Well,
Oh,
and,
I
you
will-
know,
I will say that-
yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, that's fine. There was the case to be made. I know we're making case jokes
Hey.
at this point now. That
In case you
it's
get tired
adding,
of it,
it's
I'll tell
adding
you
bulk to the phone, and who wants that? And it really. That's not the issue anymore. I mean, these cases are so thin. I mean, sure, you could get the case if you wanted, but adding a case for like cosmetic reasons, like I want a yellow phone today. It's just going to look cute with my outfit. Why not? That's not going to make your phone feel bulky and different. You have so many different options. I just happen to be, I think it's more than I'm just like, I'm too lazy. It's like, I also don't have a bunch of handbags. I just don't. It's just going to be the phone.
I will say that the one thing that has happened as I have gone without a case, and I don't know whether or not the case overhang was stopping it, but I do scratch my screen more. And it's not something that is super apparent, like when the screen is going,
Yeah.
but when it is pitch black, it shows up in a way that bothers me. And I if there's anybody that
every
knows
case
a good
has
way
a little
to
bit
buff
of a
that out,
bumper that kind of
Yeah.
keeps some things.
I
from
need to
hitting.
buff that out because it does bother me
Yeah.
in low light.
I think we should create cases for all of us with our faces. We could have a Roger case, we could have a Tom case, a Sarah
But
case.
we don't get to have our own.
You
No,
get
have
to
to
have
mix
can't
them
rock
up.
your own case. That's,
No, yes.
Well,
I mean, you
I
can.
wanna-
Dibs on Roger.
You physically
wanna-
can, but
I want a Justin case.
Okay.
Oh,
I am Roger.
just in
Tom
case.
has Justin.
Get it?
Yeah.
Just in case.
Sarah, what do you want? You want me or do you want Tom?
oh, this is a loaded question.
Rob case. Sarah's
You
like,
want you want a Roger case because it's going to have an
Who do you
imprint of
like
my
better,
face
me
on
or
it.
Tom, say it
I called
right
dibs.
Scott case.
All right, does everyone rest their case?
We rest our case.
We rest our case. Very funny, Roger.
Case closed.
All right. We could talk about cases all day, but we are going to check the mailbag now.
Indeed. Andre wrote in response to us discussing Samsung and LG having subscription programs for appliances. Andre says, I've been a digital nomad for the past 6 years, and I've found that I have 3 options. Rent an Airbnb, rent an unfurnished apartment, or rent a furnished apartment. I often end up renting an unfurnished apartment for 6 months to a year because it's always the cheapest option. I also don't like using the beds and old appliances. It would be amazing if there were an option for a lower cost unfurnished Airbnb or an a la carte short-term rental option. You could pick and choose what furniture you wanted or needed for the duration of your stay. There could even be discounts for the quality of the furniture and appliances.
I love this one from you, Andre, not only because I agree with you, but also I've been on the other side of the Airbnb specifically experience where I was a property manager, and the idea that people would be coming in and out being like, no, I want a different dishwasher. And nope, different mattress for me. We're going to have to do all sorts of fancy footwork for us to get comfortable. I would be like, nope, absolutely not. This is not happening. Can't be done. I mean, talk about wear and tear on the house. But you talk about living somewhere for 6 months to a year, which is often what just regular renters do anyway. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and if it was a subscription plan like the Samsung one, the person renting deals with it. Samsung shows up, leaves the equipment, they pay for it, they sign it. Maybe Airbnb offers it through Airbnb, and then when they leave, Samsung comes and picks it up and takes it away.
Yeah, but man, when you're talking about big appliances, it's like something's gonna break. Talk about phone shattering. I mean,
I know, but that's the great thing. You don't own it. You just
you
signed the
don't
subscription,
own it, but
right?
somebody does, and that person's gonna be
Yeah.
like, I don't want to
Samsung
deal with
owns
this
it.
Yeah,
stuff.
And if
Samsung's owned it.
Samsung breaks it while
No,
they're moving
the
it,
person who owns the apartment.
No,
this is what the renter is
property-
subscribing, not the property owner. The property owner's like, I don't got any furniture.
But at some point, somebody's going to accidentally put the point of that dishwasher through a wall.
Yeah,
And
the
now
dishwasher's going to go
property
through
owner
the
has to
front
deal with it.
door, and
Yeah.
then we all have to talk about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean,
The-
maybe
the-
they just
the-
need to
this
make.
stuff is heavy, guys.
I think part of it is that a lot of the doorways weren't designed for modern appliances, and we've been trying to shoehorn
Well,
in.
They
a
weren't
big
even
part of
designed
it.
for modern people in some cases.
So maybe
all
just
so
we just
big.
need wider doors. That's the keys. Wider doors without right angles, so you can get that couch or your bed, like the California King.
We
through the
we
side.
were staying at a place in Japan that had like a half closet, like a really small closet, and my two nieces were like, "Oh my gosh, we found a secret room." They were over the moon that there was a secret room.
It was just like so small that they're like, "What is it?"
It's like it can't be a closet. No closet would ever be that size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, having last summer having to have my refrigerator replaced, and I'm a renter, so this is something that I didn't pay for. But getting that old fridge out and getting the new fridge in, and
Yep.
I'm only I'm just one story up, but still, it's a full story in an old building. Boy, the idea that would happen multiple times a year, that's just
Lunacy.
It's lunacy.
Luckily, I wouldn't have
every
to worry about
6
it.
months or every
Yeah.
year, not quite as lunatic, but
But remember,
But
it's not.
still, yeah, it's a
You
there's-
want to go no more above double digits on that in a lifetime. Like you want to keep that number as low as possible.
yeah.
I had a fridge we just have a single story. We don't have steps. And we had a fridge delivered, and it was a pain because the doorway into the kitchen is small. Doorway into the house, no problem. Brought it right in. Doorway into the kitchen, super narrow. They had to take the doors off and like do some physics and space bending. They used a black hole or something. I don't know how they-
It's one reason why I kid you not. Well, one, my kitchen's very narrow, so I got a counter depth refrigerator, which is a lot thinner than your standard fridge, and that fit in through the doorway just fine. But the washer and dryer were a little trickier. You had to take the door off the hinge and move it over.
Oh yeah, I always have to take the door off the hinge
Well, so Andre,
just to get in the house myself.
Andre, we salute you for being a digital nomad. That sounds fun.
No,
and
I get
and
this,
yeah,
yeah.
I think something like this could work out really well for someone like you who's like, I know what I'm doing and I know what I want.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just hope my fridge stays alive for the duration of my time here at my rental.
Yes,
Otherwise,
please.
they'd be running.
If you
Right.
if you
and I have to go catch up.
If you cause novenas to be said for Sarah's fridge, please let us know. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
It's a great fridge. Shout out
Hell
to you,
of a fridge.
Whirlpool. Remember, you can send in your comments to feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. We want to hear your stories, like Andre's stories. If you have questions about anything we talk about on the show, send it our way. Early and often, and thank you in advance. Also, thanks to you, Justin Robert Young, for being with us today. What is going on with you when you're not, talking about politics?
Well, I'm talking about politics, actually. That's
Nothing goes on.
That's what's happening 24/7 these days. Not only do we have episodes from last week talking about some of the realities of the tariffs and what was happening with the markets. Obviously, it's a little bit out of date because things have happened really, really quick. But later this week, you're going to be able to hear the one and only Tom Merritt talking about the Meta trial, what's real, what's feasible, and what is going to happen. That is all this week on Politics. You can find it at politics.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
I hate to keep saying this, Justin, because I don't want to give you a big head, but the Patreon episode, the Sunday show is essential listening for me this morning because they were all talking about the semiconductor tariffs. So
Yes.
providing a service to me where I was like, oh, this is the important things that the Commerce Secretary said. Here's what the other people were saying. Folks, it's essential stuff. You want to go check it out. So get it in your life. You need it. During the show, folks have been submitting titles at dtns.showbot.tv. You can submit them in Discord and the Twitch chat as well. Our top vote getter right now is from Zoe Brings Bacon. The latest on tech tariffs. That's what you think is your favorite title today.
Wow.
It's like, you know what? I just want the latest on tech tariffs. That's all I can think about these days.
Also,
we
bold that you would think that this will still be the latest by the time that we publish in
right.
5 seconds.
Should AI be dehumanized is running right behind that. Taxing Times is on here. Justin's TLDR on tariffs. AI tariff hallucinations. Surveillance is all around from Fred 819. They want her. HER from GPEG 84. That's a good one. Oh my gosh, so many good ones. Untangling tweeting tariffs. The case for the iPhone going commando from C-SPAN. Woo. Sarah, what did we go with?
Even though I shout out to Zoe for softball pitching Roger's phone, which is a good one. We did go with our top vote getter, the latest on tech tariffs.
Thank you,
Zoe brings
Zoe.
bacon. Yeah, Zoe, you were on fire today.
Indeed. Good stuff, Zoe. As always, big thanks to everybody who watches us on LinkedIn. Laminar Rainbow watching us on YouTube today gave us a $1.99 super sticker. Thank you, Laminar Rainbow. Appreciate that. Every little bit is appreciated. And big thanks to Bex, who gave us a raise on Patreon. Thank you, Bex, for that. We also got a bunch of folks watching us on Twitch. Chaz Basden resubscribed for the 55th month. Straven cheered us with 100 bits and 3 bits right before that. Zoe cheered us with bits. PC Milesy with 50 bits and 50 bits before that. Malin resubscribed for the 12th month. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us however you can.
If you support us, and if you're with us, you support us in some way. So thank you in advance. We'd love for you to show your support for us at our store, dailytechnewsshow.com/store. We got some fun stuff in there. We got t-shirts, we got mouse pads, we got mugs. The new DTNS Live logo is something we're all very fond of. And if you want to, I don't know, strike up a conversation at that cafe that you go to down the street where someone says, cool shirt, where'd you get it? Well, that would be one way to do so. Great looking ways to support us and the show. And if you are so inclined, send us a photo of either yourself or your cafe where you might be rocking some of our gear. You can also watch us live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, that is 2000 UTC, and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. It's Monday. Tuesday, we're doing it all again with Nika Monfort joining us. Talk to you soon.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.